Good morning, Grace Church. I am so excited that annual meeting time is upon us. You may recall that this time last year at annual meeting season, I had the flu, so there was nowhere to go but up for me because I'm actually here with you this morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order with my apologies that we had a screen collapse right after worship, which clearly means the Lord does not want us to use a screen this morning. So that's okay. All the information we would have put on the screen is going to be sent out in an email attachment for you to read at your leisure as you're getting ready for the Super Bowl. Before I officially call the meeting to order, I am delighted that the gargoyles are going to open our meeting for us.
Let's have a good fellow now join in the song. Vive la compagnie. Success to each other and pass it along. Vive la compagnie. Vive la, vive la, vive l'amour. Vive la, vive la, vive l'amour. Vive l'amour, vive l'amour. Vive la compagnie. Vive la compagnie.
Willing endeavor to unite.
Vive la compagnie. Vive la, vive la, vive l'amour. Vive la, vive la, vive l'amour. Vive l'amour, vive l'amour. Vive la compagnie.
Shall time or occasion compel us to part? Vive la compagnie. These days shall forever enliven the heart. Vive la compagnie.
Vive la, vive la, vive l'amour. Vive la, vive la, vive l'amour. Vive l'amour, vive l'amour. Vive la compagnie. Hey!
Let us begin our time together with prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with us as we take counsel for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you all very much. Marilyn Machowski has served nobly as the clerk to the vestry, and I would like to officially appoint her with my deep gratitude as the clerk for our annual meeting this morning. Any objections? You have our undying thanks. Thank you very much. In your packet are the minutes for the 2023 annual meeting, which I cannot speak to because I was very sick at the time. But I want to acknowledge that both wardens presided over the meeting in my absence and did such a wonderful job of leading us on that day. And I want to thank Marilyn for recording it for us. I would like to enter the minutes to the 2023 annual meeting as presented. We have a motion from Mr. Guard to waive the reading of the minutes and have them entered. We have a second from Mr. Socker. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our warden is going to present the nominations for this year's leaders.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. You want to be here with the microphone? Sure. Morning, everyone. I'd like to present the slate of candidates that we have for the 2024 vestry. As warden, class of 2026, we welcome Andy Bolt. Vestry, class of 2027, we welcome a new member, Dan Bollig, and continuing members, Angela Finlay, Judy Honahan, and Michael Petit, who have each renewed for another term on vestry. In vestry class of 2026, we welcome new vestry member Philip Dean. For the deputies to diocesan convention, class of 2025, again, we thank John Guard and Allison Guard. And alternate deputies to diocesan convention is Mike Castile. With the slate presented, can I have a motion to accept the slate of candidates?
Move to close the nominations and accept the slate as submitted.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. I think the ayes have it, and thank you very much. Welcome, New Vestry. Yep.
Being on the vestry is super fun. Like, really, really fun. And if you don't believe me, Mike Petit will tell you in great detail how much fun it is on your way out. It's especially fun to serve as a senior warden in a global pandemic. Like, you can't imagine how much fun that is. Chris Wild has served our community so faithfully. He is a measured, optimistic, very, very encouraging leader. And his prayers have held me up, and his wisdom has been a blessing to all of us. He has served 2 terms as our senior warden, and I'm sure that he's going to miss us terribly next month, but mercifully, the Wilds are important leaders in our community, so they're not allowed to leave our community, but after very faithful leadership to us, Mr. Wild is earning his ticket out of vestry, and would you please help me thank him for the work he's done? We have parting gifts.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. Mike Cullen, where are you? Mike Cullen is completing 2 rotations of serving on the vestry. And we're, again, very blessed that he's not leaving the Grace Church community, because without Mike Cullen, this building might have collapsed already. He has retired from PSC&G, and he had a wonderful day and a half of retirement before he got a new job. And so he works very hard in his sort of real life, and he has helped us in innumerable ways, both before his time of service on vestry and certainly during his time on vestry. In particular, this time of year, I give thanks for the fact that during the lockdown, when the diocesan policies would not allow us to come inside this room during the holy season of Lent, I called Mike Cullen saying, how hard would it be to make Stations of the Cross for our people so we could pray outside this Lent? Because for me, it would be impossible, but for Mr. Cullen, it was not impossible, and they were and still are an important resource for us as a community, for us to be together and pray and mark holy time together. So you have been marvelous and creative, and I can't, on my best day, even nail a nail into a wall, and you're remarkable, and I'm so thankful. Will you help me thank Mr. Cullen? This is the fun part of the meeting. It's the rector's report. And I want to start my rector's report by acknowledging my amazing fashion choice today. I'm a little bit hurt that no one complimented it, but I'm wearing the best cowboy boots I own, and I am wearing this remarkable jacket, and that is because I am officially in mourning for Toby Keith. He was a legend, and I have been so sad all week, and I like all of his songs. My favorite is Should Have Been a Cowboy, because I should have been. But I also like How Do You Like Me Now? Does anyone know that one? Yeah. The most sinful part of me loves that song. In the pandemic and the worst of it, it was easy to believe that we as a parish in particular, and we as the people of God in this time in history, were really on a fool's errand. that trying to maintain our life of prayer and trying to continue with our common life was probably going to be pointless and futile in the end. But here we are on the other side of pandemic, and I'd like to say, how do you like us now? We have had a remarkable year, and I am deeply thankful for the many ways in which the people of God here at Grace Church have been a vision to the town of Madison and to the world around us, that our life of faith is indeed life-giving still and is vibrant still. Our weekly celebrations of the Lord's Day are my own sustenance, and I can't imagine my life without marking those days with all of you. You may have noticed this year that we have started using prayers of the people that have been authored by members of this community. That's one of the things that the prayer book lets you do, and I wanted us to kind of exercise that option this year. So one of the things that has been life-giving to me is praying the words of some of the faithful women and men in our community. And so far this year, we have prayed prayers crafted by Kit Cohn, by Jabez Van Cleef, by Callie Yost, by Jeff Brooks, and by Georgianne Di Giovanni. They're all beautiful, and I just, if it's something that you hadn't noticed that we're doing now, I wanted to publicly thank the people who have taken time in their own prayer life to craft words for us, for our life of prayer. Dr. Ann is a miracle worker, and the choirs are amazing, and she works very hard. And remember, she's one of the only sort of global musicians who have actually had people join the choir during a global pandemic. And so on the other side of pandemic, it has just been incredibly joyful to see the fruits of her very creative and faithful work. And who else has an annual meeting kicked off with teenage boys who sing? Nobody. So how do you like us now? That was really good. Jeff Brooks is our verger, and without him, I might have converted to another faith by now, because he does so much to make our worshiping life a fulsome experience. He gathers many people into our life of prayer and organizes us, and I don't know how he does it, but I am thankful for him. The beautiful, wonderful worship materials that you have at all seasons, but particularly on feast days like Paschal Triduum and Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, they are made possible because of the creative efforts of Susie Harris, who you almost never get to see because she worships with another community on Sundays. But when you do see her, please tell her that she's an artist, and we are blessed by her work. We mostly worship in here, but not always. We have worshiped outside, and if you've been outside at all, just to go to and from your car, you can't help but notice that our outdoor chapel area is beautiful. It was completed last year by Luke Dean for his Eagle Scout project, and if you haven't gone to notice it, please do. It's a beautiful place of prayer. And it is now connected to our memorial garden. That was, as you probably are aware, it was funded in large part by a gift from Ginny Carl, who gave that gift to us before her death. And it has been a joy and a blessing to sort of try to complete her vision, that what she had hoped for that space. Judy Jurgensen it was a full-time job for her before, during, and after construction, as she oversaw that project and so many other details of the care of these buildings, and I am so thankful for her. Will you help me thank Judy? Behind Mr. Houck is our baptismal font. It used to be there. I've talked about the baptismal font. You're probably sick unto death of hearing me about it. But I want to acknowledge at this annual meeting that that project was completed in loving memory of Dora Monserrate, given by Bruce Rudin in her memory. And Dora loved us so much. We were so blessed in the innumerable ways that she loved and cared for us. And her primary grievance with the way we celebrated baptism in this community is she couldn't see anything. So to honor her and to put the baptismal font in a place of prominence, that project was completed this year. Ed Nunn helped oversee the details of that. I don't see Captain Nunn here, but do thank him if you see him. And Bruce, thank you for sharing Dora with us, and thank you for sharing this resource with us so that we could honor baptism in this way in her memory. Thank you very much. Our live stream used to be a pandemic necessity, and in fact, in the earliest days of pandemic, I hoped that they were just an emergency measure only because I'm very, very much hating being on camera. I'm very shy about it and self-conscious. However, I have had to get over it because it has been an amazing resource for ministry for us here at Grace Church. I receive emails from people I don't even know who worship with us. They have submitted prayer requests. They have talked about the sermons they have heard or the music they have heard. And so now, rather than seeing it as something that we had to endure so that we could be together during the worst pandemic or something that makes me shy, now I see it as a gift that God has given us so that we can continue to pray together and we can indeed meet new people through this resource. And in addition, people who love us and who are no longer able to worship with us in person, they are with us on Sunday mornings, and I am thankful for them, and I'm thankful for the resource that makes that possible. We did invest more money in our live stream system this year to smooth out some of the rough spots. This was paid for in large part by a very generous grant from the F.M. Kirby Foundation, and I am grateful to them. And I am profoundly grateful that we have Mike Castile, who is always worshiping with us, but he's usually worshiping in the booth in the back. And he's not the only one, but he sort of leads the team of people who know how to do this and know how to use this resource in a way that has been life-giving for all of us here at Grace Church. Clergy leadership is the most sort of obvious and visible thing about any church life, but is by no means the most important. But it is an important part of who we are, and I felt very fortunate that we were the place where Father Asa Colson began his priestly ministry, and I'm grateful he showed a lot of perseverance. No one gets ordained to the priesthood and then fantasizes about being alone in your office for 7 or 8 months on end. And I appreciate so much that his first full year of priesthood, which is something for all of us, it's like the fulfillment of a long-awaited dream, and for Asa it was a huge challenge, and I'm thankful for the many ways that he rose to that challenge. His Bible studies were spectacular, and he was a great partner for me in ministry, and I'm proud of him and excited for the people of Grace Church in Nutley who are enjoying him this very morning. As I have already said, but I'll say very quickly, I have, in fact, known Father Robert Greiner for years. I love him, I trust him, and it seemed like a deep generosity of the Lord Jesus that his schedule made it possible for him to come be with us when Father Asa was called to a new place. So I feel very blessed that you're here, Father Robert. Thank you so much, and welcome. The finance people will call your attention to this, but this is Father Greiner's presence and ministry among us is a new thing for Grace Church in that he is only here half-time, and that is very new for Grace Church. Historically, our community has always been served by 2 full-time clergy. Father Greiner, first of all, has another ministry with the recovery community, but second of all, the church pension does not allow him to be with us full-time. So I think it's important for us to remember that even though we will see him a lot, his schedule will not permit him to be with us probably as much as he would like, but that's where we are. And I think that I want you all to know that I really feel okay about this. Our leaders who are so wonderful to me, people like David Gates, when it first became obvious that this was going to be our next phase of leadership, people worried about me, and that's so loving of you to worry about me, if I would have enough help and support. And I really feel that we're going to be okay. I feel we're going to be okay in part because we have such committed lay leaders here. And so we are able to share a lot of tasks together. And I feel okay because, half of Robert is better than anything of some, so it's really exciting. And we were able to invite Mrs. Mary McManus to join our staff, and her sole focus will be youth ministry, which is a passion of Father Asa's and something at which he excelled. And so I feel very grateful that we're going to be able to continue the work, the good work that he began in that ministry, by adding another person to the staff whose sole focus will be youth ministry. For the young people in our community who did have a relationship with Father Asa, the good news is Father Asa does continue. He's the head of the Youth Commission here in the Diocese of Newark. So as such, people will still see him at youth events because he's still responsible for them. Can't talk about the vibrancy of this community without giving a shout out to Miss Catherine. Every single time she brings a new project to us, I am jealous of her creativity and in awe of it. The pageant is amazing every year, and this year was even better. It was just so much fun, and that's her. I mean, she has a lot of help, but the children love her and trust her, and so do I. And I am very thankful for the ways that she is sharing the stories of Jesus to the youngest members of our community. So when you see her, please thank her. Angela Finlay and Han Huang, Angela's back there, established a tween ministry this year. And they together developed many tween events that were, they had a pool party in the pouring rain, apparently. That's how fun they are. So thank you. And that's another example of why I'm not panicking that we don't have, at this moment in our history, another full-time priest, because look at all the resources we do have. We have just extraordinary resources for ministry here at Grace Church. Our outreach ministries are our passion and our love, and this is how there are two ways we encounter Jesus: in the holy food and drink, and in the vulnerable among us. And I am proud of this community and the ways that outreach continues to be so central to who we are. Food for Friends has continued to be an important source of support for people with food insecurity. Rael Wielandi has taken over leadership for that program, and I'm thankful for her. The food pantry at the First Baptist Church, just right down the corner, went again from being a pandemic-era thrown together necessity to being an essential food and feeding ministry here in the town of Madison. And Marilyn is our liaison, working closely with our friends at the Baptist Church, and I'm really honored that we are such an important support to them. Our funding helps sponsor the Fresh Food Initiative, and it's been a great source of collaboration for us. Heidi Griffey is overseeing our outreach grants on social media. A few days ago, you saw all the wonderful resources we were able to share with some fantastic partnership ministries. And Heidi Griffey is helping us figure out how to best leverage the money that has been entrusted to us for the sake of the kingdom of God. This year, we also were able to spend money as far away as Liberia, and that is thanks to Kit Cohn, who brought to our attention a need for scholarships at the Gull Farm School. So I'm thankful that we are supporting our neighbors in Madison and our neighbors in faraway places. And finally, we began this year getting to know better the Center for Evaluation and Counseling, and they're the counseling service that serves out of the building next door to us. And they've been very gracious in telling us the needs of some of their clients. CEC is a place that you get sent to if the court has ordered your family into some kind of supportive care. So if you have been court-ordered into therapy because your family needs that support, then CEC is the one who's going to help you. And so the therapists and social workers who work at CEC, they're loving and generous, and they have been very wonderful in sharing with us some of the needs that they have encountered in their work, and it has been a blessing to be able to serve people we will never meet, and we don't know their names, but we trust that they are getting much needed support. This is a time of mental health, emergencies throughout the world, and so I'm very honored always when they call us and say, we have a family who's about to go to a court meeting and no one has a winter coat. And that's a problem we can fix. There's a lot of problems in this world we can't fix, but we can get coats. So I'm very thankful for their willingness to invite us more closely into their work. I want to thank all of you, because last year was a very hard year for me. And I know that I was probably very difficult to love last winter, but you loved me anyway. The loss of my brother was devastating for me and for my family, and I felt very encircled and enfolded by all of you. I felt very cared for by all of you, and most importantly, I felt not at all worried about Grace Church in those weeks, because I knew that you loved each other, and I knew that you were going to continue with the work of the church, and that I could be present to my family and to my parents, and know that the work that God has called us to do was happening here, and that you were praying for us and for me, and for that I thank you. And I do want to acknowledge that this remarkable jacket was actually my brother Benjamin's. He had very bold fashion choices, and this is my inheritance. I'm wearing it to thank you all from my family for the many ways that you helped us during a very challenging year in my own life. And I'm thankful and very blessed to be your rector, and very thankful for the many ways that you showed Jesus to me. So that was my exciting report. How do you like me now? David Gates, would you lead us in a money conversation?
Okay, thank you. As some of you know, a week ago we had a detailed review of our financial situation at the end of last year and the beginning of this. So my thought was, for this session this morning, we could just do an abbreviated version and just hit the highlights. I guess that's still the plan, but there are a lot of highlights, so bear with me. It's a story we've been waiting to tell for several years. The numbers after the pandemic were not great. And even though we're designated as financial people, and hence, by definition, not optimistic, I think we were always confident that we would get back to seeing numbers for Grace as they should be. We're not quite there yet, but we're close. Okay, we can go to the first slide, please. There you are. I don't know whether you can read this or not, but there is a version of it on the last page of the annual report that we handed out. The bottom part of the table in the report covers the income statement. which is what I have here. As you can see here, we've got the top part is our income, the middle part is our expenses, and the bottom is our net income or net deficit, if you will. The first column is our budget for last year, and the far right column is the estimated actual. Last year, when Andy presented the budget, we were looking at a deficit of about $62,000, which was, I would have to say, disturbing to most of us, because we were convinced that Grace would do much better. If you walk through the numbers in the last column and compare them with the numbers in the first column, you can see in almost, I guess, every item on income, we did better than expected, better than budgeted. And the biggest, or I think perhaps most impressive piece of that is the top line, which is pledge income, which actually came in higher in the actual than we had in our budget. Well, how does that happen? Well, it's a combination of things. One, it was John and Andy and people calling everybody that they could find at the end of the year, make sure everybody paid. But, more impressive was a good number of people paid more than they pledged, which I think is an indication of how so many of us feel about Grace. The second line is other income, which is money that we get from the parish from people who don't pledge. And and in some cases, it's a substantial amount of money, but there too, we had an increase. Other pieces of this, something labeled occupancy, which has been labeled occupancy since before I got involved in this stuff. Basically, rental income that we get from the elementary schools and from Hayes House, but they're too modestly higher. And on the endowment, as most of you know, is based on a formula, weighted average of past endowment values, which we then take 5% every year. We think, well, how does that come in higher than forecast, higher than projected? The reason was that there's what was a small contribution to Grace by a man named Anderson G., who almost no one in the room has heard of, who was active in Madison about 100 years ago. The fund that he set up for Grace and the Presbyterians, I'm not sure why the Presbyterians are involved, but for Grace and the Episcopalians, last year brought us in $39,000. So a tremendous, even with all the large numbers we're talking about, 39,000 is a big piece. As far as the expense column, expense items in the middle, it's a mixed picture, some up, some down. The biggest, I should say, decrease in expense is snow removal. We spent $6,000 on snow removal last year, whereas we'd budgeted 25. So I'm not sure who we thank for that. But at the end of the day, it resulted in a substantial reduction in our expenses. Bottom line, literally, at the end of the day, we put all this together, and we had a deficit of $8,000, which I have to say, all right, that's more like it. Especially when you compare it with the 62 we were looking at. Okay, if we can go to the next slide quickly. It's a couple of pie charts. I hate pie charts. I never use pie charts in my work. But these are beautiful. Mike put them together. And so I've got to show them. I've got to say here what it shows. is that pledge income is extraordinarily important, which will come as a surprise to no one. And the other is that personnel are a big piece of our expense. Again, no surprise really to anyone. The thing which is kind of buried in there is a lot of these other pieces are important as well, which is why we have so many people working things like office expense or B&G and the like, trying to keep these things manageable. If we could move quickly to the next slide. We've added the third line, which again is in your booklet. The third line is the draft budget for 2024. Now, how do we put that together? Well, basically because I'm an economist, I get the job of specifying an approximate growth rate. So in all my years of experience, I came up with 3%, which is about the same number we've used in the past 20 years I've been on the Finance Committee. The good news is that, okay, I put out a bunch of numbers, and the people who actually know what's going on, people like Judy Jurgensen and Ed Nunn, and the rest of us, who know what's actually going on in areas like B&G. They put together the real numbers, and this is where we come out with this. The one change this year, which again, everyone knows about, and Susan highlighted in her talk, is this question of personnel, which we've always said is a huge number. And so you know about the change in our clergy configuration. If you look at the numbers here, that would suggest that because of these major changes in personnel, our budget number for 2024 will be down, what, $23,000 versus the actual for 2023. $23,000 is a big number. But remember, that's a comparison of our budget to what our actual was for 2023. If we made the comparison based on what our costs would have been, what our clergy costs would have been, had nothing changed, had none of these changes occurred, the difference would have been more on the order of 45 to 50,000. So, I mean, this is a big change in terms of grace and our clergy setup. It's a huge change in terms of the financial picture. At the end of the day, putting all these numbers together and assuming we get normal snowfall and assuming the Andy-G account behaves as it normally does with no big surprises, we end up with a savings, or excuse me, a net deficit of about $7,000. Not quite where we want to be, but assuming no surprises like we had in 2023. So with normal snow and a normal Andy-G payment, we're still getting very close to break even. All right, one quickly, I'm not going to spend any more time on, I've spent enough time on pie charts, so let's move to the last chart, which is really a setup for what Bruce will say about the endowment. This is the balance sheet. And for that, we compare year-end 2023, the year just ended, with 2022. We're good, but we can't say what the balance sheet will look like in year-end 2024. We'll work on that. The important point here is if you look, compare where we are with the components of assets with the components of liabilities. If you look at assets, our cash at year-end was almost $400,000, which is an outrageously large amount of cash under normal circumstances. In fact, a big piece of that, $90,000 to $100,000, is money which we're holding for the choir trip. So that will go away in due course when the trip occurs. The endowment cash and securities is basically what we're talking about with assets. And Bruce will outline where we are there. In terms of liabilities, there are only two liabilities worth mentioning. One is the accounts payable, the $99,000 there. That's the other side of the choir, payments for their trip. Benefits payable are trivial. Prepaid church support, that's basically prepaid pledges. And as you can see, that's a big number every year and down a little bit, but not worth worrying about. The end of the story, the liabilities don't amount to much. So bottom line on fund balances, which I think for most of us think in terms of the equity of the parish, we're looking at something almost $6 million. And with that, I will turn things over to Bruce. But highlights only, but some real highlights this year. Thank you very much.
The endowment. It starts on page 21 if you want to look on your annual report, if you can't see that as well. But we did extremely well this year, and basically the last 2 months of the year were gangbusters when the market shot up. And I want to emphasize the fact that 6 or 7, 8 years ago, we put our money into the DIT, which is they used the TIAA, used to be TIAA CREF, as the money managers. I happen to be on that board as well, and they did extremely well because they have more money in equities than we do, on the equity side, that is. But we've done extremely well this year, and we have roughly 97% of our money in the endowment with the DIT. And I feel very comfortable with them. They, having been on the board a few years, we have updates by TIAA 4 times a year. And they are acting very professionally, I have to admit, on the way they handle our funds. And actually, you can see, if you go on the diocesan website, you can get into the diocesan DIT portion and see what they've done in detail. And if you look at our report, we made roughly 15.4% last year, which is really quite good. And that equates to $769,000 of income during the year, or gains in the market. And we didn't really need much out of the endowment as compared to other years. We only took about $160,000 out. And that's primarily into our budget of income, which Dave just went into. And we did quite well. We have a benchmark, that we compare to, which is, and we did quite well compared to that. I don't want to go into too many numbers because it gets a little confusing, but I just want to emphasize that we've done very well with it, and it was a good thing that we moved it into the TIAA, DIT, I guess about 5 years ago or so, if I remember correctly, John?
What, I didn't hear you say it.
I said we moved it into the DIT about 5 years ago?
It was longer ago.
Maybe it was longer, yeah.
It's in your 7 or 8 years time.
Yeah. A very good move, because we were doing it ourselves, and that takes a lot of work, especially as it got larger and larger and larger. And the fact that the DIT really straightened themselves out in that period, longer than that, by going to the TIA, which has done, as I emphasized before, a really good, and we're going forward with them. And if you have any questions later on, I'll take questions, but I think we ought to move on to the next stewardship. Stewardship.
Good morning. I did a wrap-up last Sunday, and I want to thank you again for your generosity during this pledge season. Our theme was gratitude and grace, and I think Susan did a great job going through everything that we have to be grateful, and then the way we express that through the grace that God has given us, whether it's maintaining our own facilities or reaching out to others, and also providing support to the congregation here. As we wrapped up the stewardship, the actual amount that is going into the budget is, as a goal, is $505,000. It shows up here as 490 something because we take 90% of our goal as a conservative base for what we're actually going to collect, and as you can tell, we exceeded that last year, but we continue to remain conservative. Our average pledge, which slide are we on? Okay, yeah. So our average pledge, it was up about 8% from last year, which was just, was just great with the generosity of our members. Unfortunately, the number of pledging units was down about 8%. So we have about the same amount as last year, and we'd really like to have 100% participation. And there's, about 20 families that we're still hoping will decide to pledge for this coming year and support what we have to offer, the outreach that we have locally and internationally and within our diocese through our diocese. I can never say this word, diocesan share, the amount we give, to the bishop. But the pledge income is about 65% of our budget, and the collaboration and that we do as a congregation really enables all of these things that we're grateful for and allows us to plan and have goals for the future that not only help our own congregation, but allows us to contribute to those that are less fortunate than we are. So thank you very much, and if you don't have your pledge in, there's no time like the present.
I know that everyone has to go root for Taylor Swift's boyfriend. So I don't have a horse in this race this year. I just want to watch. I want to eat some really good junk food, and I want some good football, and I will be wearing my cowboy boots. So. Questions, comments? The leadership and I are more than happy to try to answer any questions you have, and if we can't answer them today, we're happy to get you a good answer later. Is there anything that you're dying to know or throw on our radar before we adjourn today? Wow. It is Super Bowl Sunday. No judgment. Andy Bolt, I'm excited about working with you, and I thank you for your service. Dan Bollig, super fun. I'm very fun, right? Vestry. I don't know who I have to thank for talking Mr. Bollig into accepting our invitation to serve, because he said, I'm going to call you back after I talk to a vestry member, but he didn't say who it was. So I spent an entire night trying to go. So was it you, Andy? Well, whoever it was, thank you. You closed the deal for us. Thank you. Great. I would like us to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Garrett. A second. All in favor? Let's stand for prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Ever-living God, whose will it is that all should come to know you through your Son, Jesus Christ, inspire our witness to him, that all may know the power of his forgiveness and the hope of his resurrection, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Thank you all. Have a good Super Bowl.